Hey, good evening. You know, we are here at the Vista House where it has just been non-stop strong winds here. Yeah, well, we're here at Southwest 6th and Jefferson, and what I can tell you is that things have heated up here. Things were quieter over the last couple of hours. Today, we're seeing the extent of damage as bullets hit several cars here, damaging the sides and shattering this window. The wind is just howling, and it's getting much colder, and you know the roads are much icier. I've showed this a couple of times. You can see how much snow has accumulated here. Within the last hour, we witnessed that group smash the windows here at the Democratic Party of Oregon building during the pandemic. There is a lot to consider in terms of setup for social distancing, but organizers say there is enough space in here to keep everybody safe. Well, here's an example of one of the major hazards here out on the water. Take a look. This is what Jefferson Fire is talking about. The trees laying clear across the river. Special agent in charge, Ren Cannon, told me today that he's putting more resources toward investigating violent crimes related to recent riots in Portland. Well, I have been reaching out to city officials for days now, asking whether they are going to make some changes as we continue to see gun violence happen. And, you know, we've also spoken with neighbors here in the Centennial and Hazelwood neighborhoods. They are fed up. They're even calling for the gun violence reduction team to be reinstated. For these women, fear is their reality.
There's people that have had gunshots go through their windows or right through their walls and hit them in the back or in the leg.
I think it becomes a reality when you recognize that my 8-year-old says, I think I heard another gunshot.
Shootings almost every night. The two live only a couple of minutes from each other in the Hazelwood and Centennial neighborhoods.
We are failing as a community. Villagers that are supposed to be raising our children safely.
With more than 100 shootings in Portland so far this year, we asked for concrete solutions on how the city plans to combat gun violence. But our questions went unanswered Tuesday from all Portland city commissioners. I reached out to Mayor Ted Wheeler's office 3 times on the issue with no response. And we were also told that the Portland police chief was unavailable for an interview.
They have to realize that in this democracy, they work for us.
Randy Philbrick also lives in the Hazelwood neighborhood. He's now pushing for a community coalition.
Moms, dads, uncles, grandmas, anybody who is interested in helping their community. Ideally, I'd love to get a liaison from the Portland Police Bureau.
Philbrick wants to see the gun violence reduction team, which was disbanded last summer, reinstated. The community loud and clear, asking city leaders to step up with a solution.
Clearly, I believe that the PBB has a lot of internal changes that we need to do, but we cut this team without some kind of plan.
And we will continue to ask city leaders for solutions on this issue. I am working to coordinate an interview with the police chief sometime this week. Reporting live here in Southeast Portland, Sarah Hurwitz, Fox 12 Oregon. It's bars and restaurants like the Chutes Brewery here in Northwest Portland that have been hit hard by the pandemic. That's why the CEO says this is not the right time for this bill. But those in recovery say that this is what the state needs right now.
Once I started using, I was off to the races, and it became the most important thing to me.
Tony Vesna has been sober for nearly 9 years.
I was an IV heroin user living downtown Portland, spanging for money and committing small crimes to support my habit.
This is Vesna in 2019, holding a picture of his last arrest from 2012. He now runs the 4D Recovery Center in Northeast Portland.
People like me can go to detox, go to treatment, and then come to a place like 4D or Miracles where they can get long-term recovery, but there isn't enough, and there isn't like a coordinated way to make sure this all works together.
According to a new bill, House Bill 3296, Oregon has the 3rd highest untreated addiction rate in the nation, ranking 47th in access to addiction treatment. The Addiction Crisis Recovery Act aims to increase taxes on alcohol to fund behavioral health and substance use programs. The bill would increase the tax on beer or cider from $2.60 a barrel to $72.60 per barrel. Now, wine taxes would increase from 65 cents to $10.65 per gallon.
It's really about how do we build a system of care that looks at prevention, looks at intervening in people's use of substances before they become addictive.
Mike Marshall is the executive director of Oregon Recovers, which has had a hand in developing this legislation.
The Addiction Crisis Recovery Act will actually result in about 2,500 more residential beds. I think 4,000 outpatient programs, all kinds of recovery housing, all the systems of care we need to get the addiction rate down and the recovery rate up.
But opponents of the bill say this will hurt Oregon's large beer and wine industry, which the Oregon Beverage Alliance says this is an essential part of the state's economy and is already struggling because of the pandemic.
It was pretty shocking that somebody would propose, particularly at this time, an increase of that amount of money when we're already struggling to pay our bills.
Michael Lalonde, the president and CEO of Deschutes Brewery, says the tax would trickle down.
It would be incredibly painful at a time where we just don't have the ability to do something like that. We could not eat it ourselves, so that means it would have to be passed on the consumer if the consumer wants to pay additional money for beer, wine, or spirits.
Well, hey, Bonnie, our story centers around a junior here who attends Lincoln High School and the jolting change that he had to deal with of going from class here every day to sitting behind a computer. And then the dramatic shift his pediatrician says she's seen nearly every day in her patients. 17-year-old Ethan Rodriguez could have never imagined that leaving for spring break last year marked the drastic transition to a new way of life.
I was saying goodbye to my friends that I only know from school, and I was like, bye, see you in a week.
Except that turned into a year of no learning inside the classroom or seeing friends in person. He and his family all homebound with various computer setups for school or work.
I think that the major mental health stuff comes in where the days get really repetitive and they all start to feel the same.
The end of the day, at 6 o'clock, and all this sort of emerged from our various computers, just sort of glazed and tired, and then doing that on, kind of repeat for the next, year. It's been difficult.
For Ethan and many kids during the pandemic, they've had to make the harsh adjustment to a lack of in-person interaction and learning over a screen.
So I'll go into a breakout room and I'll say something and then no one will respond, and then we'll just sit in silence for 45 minutes, and that really is hard because I really like working with classmates and like working in a team on projects.
And Ethan says if he doesn't feel he knows the teacher that well, it's tough to reach out for help.
I don't know if they're going to respond, and they're also still really busy.
What are some of the things that you have struggled with?
Isolation's definitely been hard. There's probably been a month where I just didn't see anyone besides everyone in my family, like in person.
But his dad, Tony, recognizes that his son and other kids have found ways to adapt by connecting with friends online.
I'm going to go out and figure out how to not be isolated, and I think that's pretty neat, and I think for some kids it's pretty empowering.
They have really taken steps to stay away from their friends, limit their activities. They've done all these things. So the big thing I always tell them, it's my job to make sure they're okay. That's my job, to help them through this, because they have done so much for us.
Ethan's pediatrician, Ann Vestergaard, who sees patients at this clinic in Northeast Portland, wants to recognize that sacrifice and bring attention to the mental health impacts that the pandemic is having on kids. She says in her 20 years in practice, she has never seen so many patients for mental health.
And I walked in the room and I just said, hello, how are you? And he started crying. And that is not unusual. It is pretty much expected for me to have all my older kids to be having something going on.
And she says she's prescribing more medications for anxiety and depression in children. And mental health resources, she says, are stretched slim.
As soon as you have a list of names, those people are booked.
And so she's taking on a role she's not even trained for, but is doing the best she can.
I will see those patients pretty quickly just to talk to them, touch base with them, and I'm sure every pediatrician is doing the exact same thing.
And for Ethan, who plans on returning to the classroom soon, he's looking forward to that change and hopes that parents understand that kids need a break from the repetition of this pandemic.
I think my generation is very good at hiding how they're feeling. So there's a lot of kids going through stuff, more than I think the parents of those kids know.
And here's some resources if you are concerned about your child. You can contact the Multnomah County Mental Health Call Center. Dr. Vestergaard says if your child is actively suicidal, she says, unfortunately, the emergency department is the only option right now. Now, happening tonight, a really important discussion. Lincoln High students, they will be holding a virtual discussion to talk about some of the mental health issues and the struggles for teens, and to also help parents figure out how to have those conversations with their kids. That meeting is from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Again, it's virtual, and we will have a link to that on our website, kptv.com. Reporting live here in Southwest Portland, Sarah Hurwitz, Fox 12 Oregon.